Welcome to Fun Story Clips. Here, you'll enjoy inspiring stories while practicing English with easy-to-follow phonetics. Every story comes with a small life lesson to reflect on. Don't forget to hit subscribe to stay with us. And now, let's begin today's story. Normally, I would share just one story with you, but today is a special day. I've put together 25 of the best stories for you to enjoy, practice your skills, and follow along with IPA pronunciation seamlessly, without interruption. Now, let's begin.
It was a quiet Saturday afternoon. The sky was clear, the breeze was soft, and the neighborhood was calm. John, a middle-aged man living in the suburbs, finally decided to spend the day cleaning out his garage, a task he had avoided for years. The garage was a mess, more like a museum of forgotten things: his son's rusty old bicycle, piles of cardboard boxes stacked to the ceiling, a broken chair, and countless items no one remembered anymore. Dust floated in the air as sunlight slipped through the cracks of the door, cutting across the concrete floor. While moving some heavy boxes, John noticed a small cardboard box in the darkest corner, half buried under old newspapers. It looked worn out, bent at the edges, its brown color faded to gray. There was nothing special about it. Still, curiosity made him pull it out and open the lid. Inside, he found nothing. The box was completely empty. No letters, no photos, no souvenirs, just silence. For a moment, John felt disappointed. He remembered that years ago, he had placed little keepsakes inside, a few handwritten notes, a ticket stub from his first movie date with his wife, a postcard from a family trip. But now, everything was gone. Only the hollow box remained. John sat down on the cold concrete floor, holding the box in his hands as a ray of light stretched across the garage. Then a thought came to him: maybe those items were never the true treasure. The ticket could tear, the postcard could fade, but the laughter of that date, the love he felt, the joy of traveling together, all of that was still alive in his heart. The box was empty, but his memories were not. As he sat there, John realized how many invisible boxes he had been carrying around. Boxes filled with regrets about mistakes from the past. Boxes packed with anger at people who had hurt him. Boxes stuffed with fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough. He thought holding on to them would protect him, but in reality, they only made him heavy and tired. That empty box suddenly became a mirror. It reminded him that letting go does not mean losing. To let go is not to erase a memory, but to allow it to live in a gentler way. A broken gift does not erase the love it once represented. A lost photograph does not erase the joy of the moment it captured. True value never lived in objects, it always lived in experiences, in people, in the heart. The garage felt symbolic now. It was not just cluttered with boxes and tools, it looked like his own mind. Year after year, he had been filling it until there was no space left. Not just with things, but with unfinished dreams, broken expectations, and disappointments he refused to release. No wonder he often felt stuck and exhausted. Maybe what he really needed was not more, but less. Not another box to carry, but the courage to open the old ones, face them, and let them go. John decided not to throw the box away. Instead, he placed it on a clean shelf. From that day forward, every time he looked at it, he would be reminded of one simple truth: life is not about collecting things, it is about living moments. The present is stronger than the past. And the future is always waiting, ready to enter if we create the space for it. Life lessons from John's empty box. Letting go does not erase memories, it allows them to live peacefully within us. True value is not in objects, but in love, people, and experiences. Emptiness is not an ending. It is the beginning of freedom, space, and new opportunities. In a small, peaceful village surrounded by green fields, there lived a boy of 16 or 17. At an age when many young men already showed signs of courage, strength, and confidence, he appeared timid, fragile, and hesitant. His father often looked at him with heavy concern. How will this child face the storms of life? He wondered. After sleepless nights of thinking, the father made a bold decision. He entrusted his son to a respected martial arts master. The master accepted, saying only, "Leave him with me for 6 months. Do not visit. When you return, you will not see a boy, you will see a man." From that day, the boy entered a world of relentless training. Mornings began before sunrise. His hands struck wooden posts until they bled. His body fell onto the hard ground again and again. At night, when others rested, he continued drills under the cold moonlight. His muscles ached, his breath often broke, and sometimes tears welled in his eyes. Many times he wanted to quit. Yet every time he fell, the master's firm voice echoed, "Stand up. If you fall 7 times, rise 8. Slowly, something changed. The bruises became calluses. The trembling became steadiness. The boy still fell often, but each time he stood quicker, his gaze sharper. He had not become the strongest fighter, but he was no longer the boy who surrendered easily. 6 months passed. The father returned, heart full of hope. He imagined his son fierce, unshakable, perhaps even unbeatable. To test him, the master arranged a duel with a seasoned fighter. The match began, and in only moments, the boy was struck down. The father's heart shattered. 6 months, and still so weak. But then the boy rose. His body wavered, but his eyes glowed. He faced the opponent again. Another fall. Another rise. Again and again, more than 20 times. Each time the father winced, expecting surrender. Yet each time, his son stood up, fists clenched, spirit unbroken. Shaking his head, the father muttered, "This is failure. This is shame." The master quietly answered, "No. You see defeat, I see courage. A man is not defined by never falling, but by never refusing to rise." For the first time, the father understood. His son had not yet learned to win battles against others. But he had mastered the greater battle against despair, against giving up. And that was the true essence of manhood. This lesson shines beyond the old story. Life is filled with falls. An exam failed. A job lost. A dream rejected. A heart broken. Some collapse at the first setback, believing they are worthless. Others hide inside fear, never daring again. Yet think back, every child learns to walk only by falling hundreds of times. If they had given up, no one would ever run under the open sky. In school, those who cheat for quick results think they have won. But that victory is hollow, like falling and refusing to rise. Reality eventually demands true knowledge. In work, some chase quick money, ignoring the slow building of skills, trust, and reputation. They seem ahead for a moment, but later find themselves far behind, stripped of opportunities. True success has never been about avoiding failure. It belongs to those who fall and rise, again and again, stronger each time. Resilience is the hidden strength that carries us farther than talent or luck ever could. So remember, do not fear falling. Fear staying down. Whether man or woman, young or old, your worth is not measured by how many times you win, but by how many times you choose to rise. Victory may bring applause for a moment. But resilience, the quiet courage to stand tall after every fall, earns respect that lasts a lifetime. On a twilight path, 2 mules appeared almost identical, yet bore completely different fates. One walked with its head held high, proud to be carrying jewels and a noble master on its back. The other mule quietly bore food and a humble servant, no jingling bells, no shining ornaments, no boastful steps. The difference was not in their legs, but in their mindset. The proud mule strutted as if on a catwalk through the forest, unaware that its self-created glow would soon attract the deadly blades of bandits. Meanwhile, The quiet mule, ignored and unnoticed, survived the ordeal in peace. Here lies the lesson. Life does not measure a person's worth by what they wear on the outside, be it wealth, position, or fame, but by how they carry it. The more one boasts, the more likely they are to become a target. The simpler the approach, the easier it is to pass through life's storms unscathed. In modern society, we see the mule with jewels everywhere, people flaunting wealth, status, even knowledge, forgetting that bright lights often attract mosquitoes. Boasting not only exhausts us with the constant need to prove ourselves but also invites envy, scrutiny, and unnecessary danger. Humility, on the other hand, is like an invisible cloak shielding the mind and body from unexpected harm. You don't need to hide your true worth, but you must know when to stay silent to shine, and when to step back in order to move forward. Whether you're a CEO or an employee, a celebrity or a commoner, the lesson of the two mules reminds us, true value doesn't lie in what you carry on your back, but in the way you walk through life steadily, humbly, and wisely. In a vast forest, various species of birds lived together in harmony for many years. However, as time passed, conflicts and disputes began to arise, prompting the community to consider selecting a supreme leader, someone who could represent the collective voice, resolve disagreements, protect, and guide all the birds. This selection process highlighted two opposing values. Some birds stood out thanks to their radiant appearance, attracting every gaze and making the entire forest seem brighter whenever they appeared. This beauty became their initial advantage, easily creating a strong impression on the majority and becoming the focus of admiration and expectations. However, alongside this dazzling appearance were sober voices who looked into the true nature of leadership. They emphasized that in the challenging natural world, beauty alone was not enough. When facing danger, difficulties, and external threats, the community needed a leader who was not only beautiful but also capable, courageous, and strong enough to protect and build solid trust among all members. In the end, after careful consideration, the community chose a bird that did not possess the most radiant appearance but stood out for its strength, resilient will, and ability to protect the entire forest. This choice showed that true strength and inner qualities are the solid foundation for building trust, safety, and long-term development for the whole community. The lesson from this story is: outer beauty only holds temporary value. It can easily create an impression but cannot replace true ability. In modern life, appearance is sometimes a ticket in, but without competence, perseverance, and courage, it is difficult to maintain your position or achieve lasting success. True strength is the most important support for each person to grow, gain trust, and go far on their life journey. Relating to real life, today there are many examples of people overcoming adversity by diligently developing their inner strength, knowledge, and skills, instead of relying only on appearance. When you invest in yourself, constantly improve your qualities and abilities, you will be like the eagle of the deep forest, silent, strong, and always ready to conquer every challenge. That is a lasting and timeless value. Once upon a time, deep beneath the sea, lived a mermaid. Her world was full of shimmering light, echoing songs, and oceanic peace. But something within her stirred restlessly. She longed for something beyond her underwater realm. One day, she saw him, a human prince. Her heart was moved, not just by his appearance, but by the hope that being with him might help her understand what true love really is. She gave up her voice, the most precious part of her being, in exchange for a pair of legs to walk beside him. Every step she took felt like walking on knives. But she endured it, believing that love was worth any pain. Yet, the prince fell for someone else. Not because she wasn't enough, but because he never truly knew who she was. She was given a chance to save herself, by ending his life. But she refused. She let herself dissolve into the sea, not with hatred or regret, but with peace. In that moment, she became something more. Life lesson: not all sacrifices are love, and not all love is worth holding on to. Love should not cost you your entire self. She lost her voice, her inner truth, joy, and essence, just to be near someone. How many times do we do the same in real life? Real love doesn't demand your silence or suffering. She tried her best to be seen and loved. But efforts unrecognized often become silent wounds. Letting go can also be an act of deep love, for yourself. When she chose to fade into the ocean rather than destroy the one she loved, she didn't lose. She was reborn as a free spirit. Sometimes, letting go isn't defeat, it's the beginning of self-reclamation. Message: real love never asks you to erase yourself. At some point, we've all been that little mermaid, sacrificing silently, hoping our love will be enough. But the truth is, the right person will never ask you to betray who you are. Even in heartbreak, we can begin again, with wings, not wounds. Once upon a time, in a prosperous kingdom, a king and queen longed for a child. After years of waiting, their hope blossomed into reality, and they welcomed a baby girl named Aurora, her smile as bright as the morning sun, her eyes clear as a mountain spring. On the day of her christening, a grand celebration was held, and many fairies were invited to bless the child. But amidst the joy, one figure was forgotten, the sorceress Maleficent. Feeling rejected, Maleficent appeared in anger and cast a curse. On her 16th birthday, the princess shall prick her finger on a spinning wheel and fall into an eternal sleep. One kind fairy softened the curse. Aurora would not die, but only sleep, until awakened by a kiss of true love. In fear, the king ordered all spinning wheels in the kingdom to be destroyed, believing he could protect his daughter by eliminating all possible danger. But life cannot be shielded through absolute control. What is forbidden without understanding only invites curiosity. And indeed, on her 16th birthday, Aurora stumbled upon an old spinning wheel hidden in a dark room. No one had ever told her why it was dangerous, only that it must be avoided. So, curious and unaware, she reached out and touched it, and fell into a deep sleep. In that moment, the entire kingdom, too, drifted into slumber, as if symbolizing the sleep of communication, of wisdom unspoken, of truth hidden out of fear. Years passed. One day, a young prince journeyed through the forest and came upon the castle. He didn't rush to rescue, rather, he stood still, moved not by beauty alone, but by the stillness, the quiet life waiting to be known. He kissed her not from conquest or pride, but from a deep, quiet love that asked for nothing. Aurora awakened. The kingdom awakened. Not because she was rescued, but because she was gently called back to life by honesty, by connection, by love that sees and understands. And here is the lesson embedded in every turn of the tale. We cannot protect someone by controlling their world. Real safety comes not from shielding others from harm, but from helping them understand what lies ahead, giving them the wisdom and courage to choose rightly, even when we're not by their side. Every one of us carries a part of Aurora inside, a part of us that has fallen asleep. Maybe due to exhaustion, fear, loss, or pain, we stop being truly awake to our own lives. We will only wake again when something or someone reaches into the deepest, quietest part of us, and reminds us who we are. And love, true love, is not magic. It is presence, it is patience, it is truth. It does not seek to fix or possess. It seeks to awaken. Wen Bang Hong, the famous Taiwanese torn paper artist, is living proof of extraordinary willpower. Born with a brain disease that left him paralyzed, he could not stand or walk like others. For 14 years, his only way to move was crawling on the ground with his hands and body. At 14, he finally received his first wheelchair, a small object but one that symbolized freedom and marked a turning point in his life. Many would have surrendered, but Wen chose differently. He studied, trained, and built his own value. Despite his disability, he never abandoned his thirst for knowledge. Speech difficulties slowed him down, but at 28, when many peers already had jobs and families, he graduated from elementary school. Being late was not failure, his persistence pushed him further, and today he has reached the equivalent of a high school education. This shows that learning has no age limit, and perseverance is the truest measure of worth. At 30, he discovered torn paper art. At first, he thought it was just tearing colored paper and pasting it randomly. But as he explored, he realized its depth and sophistication. The art required patience, creativity, and meticulous effort. Instead of quitting, Wen devoted 14 years to research and creation, eventually establishing a studio and earning recognition as an expert. What seemed a simple hobby became an artistic career. Beyond art, Wen became a source of inspiration. He often visited schools, lectured, and shared his story. His words touched thousands. Never abandon yourself, never abandon your passion for life. I crawled on the ground for 14 years but never gave up. The hardships you face are nothing. If I can do it, surely you can too. From someone once considered incapable, he became a symbol of resilience, proving that human will can overcome all limits. His story offers lessons. No circumstance can stop true determination. Human value lies not in a perfect body but in an unyielding spirit. Learning is lifelong, and passion can turn suffering into strength. Today, many collapse under pressure, failed exams, job stress, broken relationships, financial struggles. Yet compared to Wen, who crawled 14 years, graduated elementary school at 28, and began art at 30, are our failures so great? Hardship is only a test of perseverance. If we give up, we remain trapped. If we rise and continue, new doors open. For young people, the lesson is clear. Don't compare yourself with others. Don't despair when friends succeed earlier. What matters is pursuing passion to the end. Starting late does not mean failing. Persistence can still make you a leader. For anyone feeling lost, Wen's story reminds us, when we do not abandon ourselves, life will never abandon us. Wen Banghong's life is like a torn paper artwork, dark patches of illness and misfortune, yet bright with faith, determination, and art. He proved that while the body may be confined, will and aspiration can never be chained. His message is timeless. Live fully, walk bravely through adversity, and discover the brightest version of yourself. As dusk settled and the streets grew quiet, a small neighborhood bakery prepared to close. The warm smell of bread that had filled the air all afternoon now lingered faintly as the last customers drifted away. On the shelf remained several unsold loaves, perfectly edible but no longer fresh enough to sell the following morning. In most places, those loaves would be discarded without a second thought. Yet the baker, a man who had spent his life rising before dawn to knead dough with patient hands, paused and made a different choice. He carefully wrapped each loaf, placed them neatly into a box, and carried it outside to the shop's doorstep. On the lid of the box, he wrote a simple message, for anyone in need. It was not a speech, not a campaign, just a quiet gesture left to the night. The baker locked up and went home, uncertain who would find the bread or whether anyone would even notice. When he returned the next morning, the box was empty. Every single loaf had disappeared. For a moment, he pictured the faces he would never know, perhaps a mother feeding her children, an old man finding strength for the day, or a student saving a few coins for rent. He could not know their names or stories, but he knew the bread had served a purpose. Instead of ending up in the trash, it had filled stomachs, quieted hunger, and perhaps offered a spark of dignity. The baker felt lighter that day, warmed by a joy no ledger could record. From the outside, it was such a small act. Bread that held little value to the seller became priceless to the hungry. And in that exchange lies a lesson we often forget. Generosity is not measured by size, but by intention. To give does not always mean to lose. Sometimes, what costs us nothing can mean everything to someone else. In modern society, the contrast is painful. Mountains of food are discarded daily, while homeless shelters remain full and families struggle to afford groceries. Perfectly edible produce is thrown away because it looks imperfect. Restaurants dispose of meals at closing time because policy demands it. This is the world we live in, abundance existing right beside emptiness. Against this backdrop, the baker's act feels almost revolutionary, not because it was large, but because it was simple, human, and compassionate. Not all of us own bakeries, but each of us has something we can offer. The loaf we share may not be bread. It might be an unused jacket that can keep someone warm through the winter. It might be a book collecting dust on a shelf that could inspire another mind. It might be our time, our patience, or a kind word to someone who feels invisible. These gifts may seem trivial, yet when offered sincerely, they can heal a weary soul, brighten a gloomy day, and remind someone that the world is still full of goodness. The baker did not become richer in money because of what he did. But he became richer in spirit, and that kind of wealth cannot be measured or taken away. It lives quietly inside us and ripples outward, inspiring others to do the same. One simple act plants the seed for another, until eventually a culture of kindness can blossom. In the rush of modern life, we chase possessions, promotions, and rewards. Yet, at the end of the day, the moments that stay with us are rarely about what we gained, but about what we gave. The loaves outside the bakery were ordinary, but the gesture behind them was extraordinary. And perhaps that is the truth we most need to remember. In giving, we discover a deeper form of wealth. So the next time you encounter something extra in your life, a meal, a coat, a few minutes of your time, consider turning it into someone else's hope. Like the baker and his loaves at the end of the day, you may find that the simplest acts, though unnoticed by the world, can leave behind the most lasting legacy. In modern life, every day we are faced with countless choices, from small everyday matters to important decisions that have a lasting impact on our own future. The story of the farmer and his loyal dog is not merely a tale of honesty, but also a profound reminder to uphold our values and maintain a far-sighted perspective. The dog in the story was confronted with a seemingly tempting challenge, a delicious bun on a cold, hungry night, but in exchange for silence in front of the thief, neglecting the property and safety of his master. If the dog had given in to the immediate benefit and forgotten his duty, the price to pay would have been huge. Not only would the master lose his belongings, the family would be put in danger, but the dog itself would also lose its shelter and the meaning of its life. For this reason, the dog chose to remain loyal to his assigned mission, resolute in the face of momentary temptation to preserve long-term benefits. The lesson here is not just for loyal dogs, but is deeply practical for all of us. In studying, many young people easily fall into cramming or cheating, hoping for quick high scores without truly acquiring real knowledge. Yet, these small gains are short-lived. When stepping into real life, lacking fundamental knowledge and skills, we ourselves are the ones who suffer. At work, if we only chase immediate salaries and bonuses, neglecting skill development, reputation, and valuable relationships, one day we will realize that we have lost much greater things: opportunities for advancement, trust from colleagues, and long-term career sustainability. Many people, for small benefits, are willing to take shortcuts, sacrificing credibility, even violating professional ethics to achieve quick success. But success built on unstable foundations will soon collapse. On the other hand, those who stick to their principles, think long-term, and always weigh long-term consequences will build a stable, sustainable life, earning the love and respect of those around them. Therefore, through the image of the loyal dog, we are reminded, never trade long-term benefits for short-term gains. Set goals, hold firmly to ethics and principles, always weigh the pros and cons, the present and the future. Only then can we truly master our lives and build a bright, meaningful future not only for ourselves but also for those around us. On a vast field, under the gentle morning sunlight, a white horse stood still. Its body was tall and muscular, with kind but sorrowful eyes. Strangely, it was tied by a thin rope to a small wooden stake that wasn't even driven deep into the ground. In the distance, other horses were galloping freely, full of energy, kicking up dust across the field. But this horse remained still. No movement. No resistance. Time drifted into the past. When it was just a foal, it had been tied to that very same stake. Back then, it pulled, struggled, tried to break free from the rope, but it couldn't. It was too small, too weak. Each attempt only brought exhaustion and failure. And then, something quietly happened inside. It stopped trying. Gradually, it began to believe that it could never break free. Years went by. The horse grew strong, its body powerful and legs full of force, but the belief inside remained just as fragile as before. It no longer pulled the rope. It never checked if the stake was still firm. It stood still as if that was simply how it had to be. There was once a time when a bundle of fresh grass was placed just a few steps beyond the stake. One gentle tug, one step forward, and the rope would have snapped, the stake would have fallen. But no. The horse just stood there, looked, then lowered its head and turned away. There was no one holding it back. No fences. Just a stake, and a belief, shaped by the past. It was no longer bound by rope. It was bound by the thoughts in its own mind. I can't. Lesson. In life, some ropes are not made of string or chains but of memories, past failures, and false beliefs we've repeated so many times that they start to feel true. Our abilities may have grown far beyond what we once were, but if we never dare to tug at the stake, never take one step beyond what feels familiar, we may live forever like that horse tied down, even when everything around us is already wide open. It's not the stake that holds us back. It's the belief that we... In a society that often glorifies competition, ambition, and financial success like the United States, it is easy to forget that the truest measure of wealth does not lie in bank accounts or possessions. Rather, it resides in the way we treat one another. A simple story about a poor boy in a cafe, who chose a smaller ice cream so he could leave a few coins as a tip, beautifully illustrates this timeless truth. At first glance, the story appears almost trivial. Just a boy, some coins, and ice cream. Yet this very simplicity is what makes it powerful. The boy had little, every coin mattered. He could have indulged himself with the larger sundae, gaining a momentary satisfaction. Instead, he consciously chose the cheaper option in order to reserve a portion for someone else. That someone else was the waitress, a stranger to him. This was not an accidental act but a deliberate choice, prioritizing another person's dignity over his own small comfort. And in a world where money so often dictates behavior, that choice shines like a rare gem. In the United States, tipping carries weight far beyond a financial gesture. For many servers, drivers, or delivery workers, tips are not a luxury, they are a vital part of survival. A few coins can mean whether dinner is full or meager. But perhaps even more importantly, a tip symbolizes recognition. It is a way of saying, I see you. I value your effort. That a child with barely enough for himself still understood this meaning reveals something profound. Kindness is not bound by wealth but by heart. This story also forces us to reflect on judgment. The waitress initially felt irritated. From her perspective, the boy was slow, indecisive, and not worth the time. Yet, when she discovered the coins left behind, her perspective shattered. The boy, who seemed so poor, had demonstrated generosity richer than any customer that day. The lesson is universal. Do not rush to measure people by appearances or spending power. The greatest acts of generosity often come from those with the least to spare. On a deeper level, the tip coin story speaks to the philosophy that kindness cannot wait until success arrives. Too often we tell ourselves, when I am wealthier, when I have more free time, when my life is in order, then I will give back. Reality shows otherwise. Some of the most moving acts of compassion emerge from scarcity: a sandwich split between two hungry workers, a coat lent by someone who owns only one, a handful of coins tipped by a boy with nothing more. These gestures remind us that generosity is not about quantity but intention. In modern American life, where speed and stress push people toward self-preservation, the story offers a gentle reminder: slow down, notice others, and care in small ways. A smile to a stranger, a seat on the subway, a few coins left on a table, each small act, multiplied across millions, forms the culture of kindness that communities long for. The tip coin is, ultimately, about choice. Every day, we face similar crossroads: satisfy only ourselves, or leave room for others. The boy faced his decision between a bigger sundae or a smaller one with a tip. We, too, face daily decisions: to rush past the homeless person or offer a kind word, to hoard our resources or share a fraction. These choices, though seemingly small, accumulate into character. And character, multiplied across individuals, shapes society. Perhaps the greatest value of this story is its redefinition of wealth. True wealth is not how much you can consume, but how much you are willing to give. That boy, though poor by material standards, was rich in the currency of humanity. His coins did more than pay for service. They paid forward a lesson in compassion that echoes long after the ice cream was gone. In a world where people are too often judged by income brackets, fashion labels, or the cars they drive, the boy's gesture reminds us, wealth of the heart can outshine any fortune of the world. In life, many of us tend to carry with us so-called golden experiences that once helped us overcome difficulties, just like the donkey in the story who accidentally lightened his burden by falling into the stream while carrying salt. The first time, when the salt on his back dissolved in the water, the donkey felt lighter, walked more briskly, and thought he had discovered the ultimate secret to an easier life. Yet, what the donkey failed to realize, and what many people often forget, is that the world is constantly changing. Every situation has its own unique circumstances, and nothing lasts forever. When the donkey applied this success secret to a new situation, with bags of cotton on his back, he not only failed to lighten his load but also found himself struggling under a burden that was much heavier, simply because the cotton absorbed the water and became bulky and difficult to carry. What might seem like a humorous tale is actually a profound lesson in developmental thinking and the necessity of carefully analyzing each issue in real-life contexts. It's not just the donkey. Many of us also fall into this trap of short-term success. We assume that simply repeating old formulas will guarantee continued victory, believing that an experience that once worked will always serve as a magical solution to any challenge. However, the world changes every minute and every second. From business and learning to personal relationships, each situation contains very unique factors, requiring us to observe, think critically, and even flexibly adjust our approach. If we fail to recognize and adapt in time, the price to pay may not just be failure but also stagnation and the loss of valuable opportunities. Some truths that are valid today may become outdated tomorrow. Some successes of yesterday may turn into the very obstacles holding us back on our path to growth. Therefore, truly successful people are not those who cling stubbornly to their treasure trove of experience, but rather those who dare to face changing realities, who are willing to learn, constantly update themselves, and are unafraid to look back on their accidental successes with a clear mind and a humble heart. Such people are always ready to reanalyze, to distinguish which experiences are truly relevant and which are merely the result of chance. It is precisely this flexibility, proactive adaptation, and willingness to innovate that separate those who remain stagnant from those who move forward, those who are weighed down by wet cotton from those who walk lightly as salt dissolves. Moreover, the story of the donkey also reminds each of us that every new beginning requires new effort and new creativity. No one can forever succeed just by relying on a single stroke of luck or their past. Sustainable success is the result of relentless effort, an open attitude toward new things, and a humble heart willing to acknowledge our own limitations. Sometimes, it is change itself and our ability to adapt to new things that ultimately determine whether our burdens on life's journey become lighter or heavier. In life, everyone desires a better future, to live comfortably without worrying about daily necessities, to enjoy convenience and peace of mind. That aspiration is entirely valid. But what's worth warning about is this: when ambition surpasses the boundaries of wisdom, it quickly morphs into greed, leading people to reckless decisions, some of which may be irreversible. The story of the poor couple and the golden egg-laying hen serves as a powerful symbolic lesson. At first, They lived a modest life, working hard in the fields, earning just enough to get by. But then came a miracle. Their hen began laying golden eggs, one per day. With time, they no longer had to labor in the fields. They bought more land, built a beautiful house, hired servants. Life became prosperous and easy, all thanks to the daily, patient accumulation from a steady source of value. But soon, contentment gave way to greed. Having much made them crave even more. One golden egg a day no longer seemed like a blessing, but a limitation. They believed there must be a whole treasure hidden inside the hen. So, driven by this illusion of fast wealth, they killed the hen, their only source of prosperity, in hopes of harvesting everything at once. But life isn't a fairy tale. There were no golden eggs inside, only ordinary ones. And they lost everything, not just the hen, but their chance at a stable, abundant future. The moral here isn't merely about foolishness or haste. It's a deeper reminder: true value doesn't lie in how much you get, but in how steadily and sustainably you earn it. In reality, many people are killing their golden hen every single day. They quit stable jobs to chase after get-rich-quick schemes. They pour all their savings into vague, high-risk investments for the promise of massive returns. They abandon good relationships because they expect greater benefit elsewhere. And in the end, they not only lose what they chased, but everything they already had. Life doesn't punish the poor, it punishes the greedy and the short-sighted. Because true wealth comes from wisdom, perseverance, and an ethic of consistent effort, not from impulsive decisions made during moments of desire. So if you have a steady job, a meaningful relationship, or a small but stable income, cherish it. Learn to collect your golden egg every day, rather than chasing a mythical treasure falling from the sky. Real opportunity isn't in shortcuts, but in the courage to take slow, steady steps on the long road ahead. Remember this: the greedy never know when enough is enough, and they never realize what they've lost until it's too late. Don't be that person. Be the one who protects, nurtures, and respects the value of consistent effort. Because sometimes, a golden egg a day is the greatest gift life can offer you. In life, there are moments when success comes to us not because of talent but purely by coincidence, and if we are not clear-headed enough to recognize that, it's easy to turn a fleeting stroke of luck into a dangerous illusion, just like the story of a mouse that accidentally bumped into the nose of a sleeping cat, causing the cat to startle and flee, and was then hailed as a hero in the kingdom of mice, praised, glorified, showered with flowers, and celebrated like a living legend. That very misconception made the mouse forget that it was merely a small creature that escaped danger by chance, and so when it encountered the same cat again, the so-called brave mouse, bloated with pride, decided to charge straight ahead, dreaming of another glorious victory that would take its name to new heights of fame. But this time the cat was awake, no longer asleep, and the result was a brutal beating, blooded and bruised, nearly losing its life, barely escaping, and returning to a wave of scorn and disappointment from the mouse kingdom. The lesson drawn from that story is deeply meaningful. An unexpected victory cannot prove real ability. One moment of praise does not mean greatness, and if one fails to truly recognize their own worth, lacks humility, and does not keep learning after success, they can easily be dragged down into failure by their own ego, just like in today's world, where some people, after a single compliment, start to believe they're a genius, or after a moment of fame, think they're invincible, only to make grave mistakes when facing real challenges. True success does not lie in accidental flashes of glory, but in the persistent, mindful process of knowing who we are and how capable we truly are, for the spotlight may come quickly but fade just as fast, while character and inner strength are what truly keep us standing firm through the ever-changing journey of life. A young artist, filled with pride and great hope, poured his heart and soul into creating a painting he believed to be the masterpiece of his life. With the desire to further improve, he sincerely invited others to give feedback by placing a pen next to the painting with a note: "Please circle any parts you find unattractive." However, the result left him completely surprised and disappointed. Nearly the entire painting was circled, with hardly a line left untouched. The deep sadness of seeing his efforts reduced to nothing but circles of criticism made him feel lost in a sea of conflicting opinions. A perceptive friend advised him to change his approach to feedback. This time, he erased all the old marks and exhibited the painting again, changing just one thing. Please mark the parts you find beautiful. When he returned, the painting was unexpectedly filled with marks of praise, even in places that had previously been harshly criticized. Surprise gradually turned into reflection, helping him realize a profound truth. The same work, in one person's eyes, may seem flawed, yet in another's, it is a masterpiece. There is no absolute standard amid the multitude of perspectives and human emotions. Looking at the bigger picture, this story reflects our own lives in the modern world. Many people are easily swayed by public opinion, living through the eyes, thoughts, and expectations of others, eventually losing their own identity and purpose. Especially on the journey to success and happiness, society always sets countless unspoken standards of what is right, what is proper, and what is accepted. If we are too worried about pleasing everyone, afraid of criticism and ridicule, we will never be able to truly live as ourselves. Each person has their own viewpoint, preference, and standard. What you are passionate about and strive for may not be recognized by some, but it can be a source of inspiration, something wonderful, in the eyes of others. The profound lesson is this: you cannot please everyone. Accepting feedback is important, but do not let the opinions of the majority overshadow your own uniqueness, personality, and life principles. Success and happiness only come when you dare to live true to your passion, values, and the principles you pursue. Be the best version of yourself, not just a shadow of society's expectations. The final lesson: know how to listen and be selective, but have the courage to live as yourself. Creativity, success, or happiness all stem from authenticity and the willingness to be different, not from constantly trying to please everyone. In life, many of us often notice the outstanding strengths of others while forgetting the unique values we possess ourselves. The story of the snail and the frog is a clear example of envy and the lack of self-awareness, a common issue not only among children but also adults. The snail moves slowly, carrying a heavy shell on its back, and day after day watches the frog jump around energetically, which makes the snail feel sad, inferior, and even distant. The frog thinks it is disliked for no reason, until one day the snail honestly shares its feelings. The frog gently responds that, despite being able to leap far, frogs also face many dangers that the snail has never seen. The climax of the story comes when the eagle appears. The snail is safe thanks to its shell, while the frog becomes prey. Only at that moment does the snail truly realize that every creature has its own strengths and weaknesses. Excessive admiration for others, if not accompanied by appreciation for oneself, leads to comparison, sadness, and even neglecting the precious shells we have. The profound lesson from this story is that, in any circumstance, each person needs to learn how to recognize, appreciate, and make use of their own strengths. Success and happiness do not come from trying to become a copy of someone else, but from the ability to understand, cherish, and make the best use of our unique values. When you know how to use your shell wisely, you not only protect yourself from difficulties but also live a life that is meaningful, free, and much happier. Once upon a time, in a kingdom blanketed with snow, a princess was born in the heart of winter. Her skin was as white as the first snowfall, her lips red as blood, her hair dark as ebony wood, and her heart pure like untouched morning dew. She was named Snow White. Sadly, her mother died young, and her father remarried a queen of great beauty but even greater envy. Every day, this queen asked her magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And each day, the mirror would reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest of all." Until one day, it answered, "You are lovely, my queen, it's true, but Snow White is even lovelier than you." Jealousy struck like lightning. Instead of looking within, the queen sought to erase the competition. She ordered a huntsman to take Snow White deep into the forest and end her life. But the moment the huntsman saw Snow White's kind eyes, he couldn't do it. He let her go, urging her to run far and fast and never return. Snow White wandered through the forest until she stumbled upon a tiny cottage, cozy and curious, with 7 small beds, 7 tiny bowls, and 7 chairs. It belonged to 7 dwarfs, each with a different personality: lazy, dreamy, happy, bashful, grumpy, clumsy, and wise, like 7 little parts of ourselves we learn to live with. The dwarfs welcomed her with open hearts. She cooked, cleaned, and they became a strange but loving family. But the queen was not finished. When she learned from her mirror that Snow White still lived, she disguised herself as an old peddler woman and traveled deep into the woods. She offered Snow White a shiny red apple, sweet on the outside, deadly within. Despite the dwarf's warnings, Snow White, ever trusting, took a bite and collapsed. The dwarfs were heartbroken. They placed her in a crystal coffin, guarding her day and night, hoping for a miracle. One day, a prince passed by, captivated not only by her beauty but by the peace she radiated. He gently kissed her forehead, and in that moment, the spell broke. Snow White opened her eyes, cheeks glowing, breath returning. She lived. Joy erupted through the forest. Snow White married the prince, the dwarfs stood as proud witnesses, and they lived happily ever after. But the true magic wasn't the kiss, it was the love of those who stayed, the quiet loyalty of the dwarfs, and the strength of a heart that never turned bitter. And so, the lesson lives on, not just in fairy tales, but in life. Real beauty cannot be taken, it shines from within. The most dangerous poison may come disguised in sweetness. And kindness, while precious, must be wise. Trust with heart, but don't forget to listen to your soul. Not every apple deserves a bite, and not every mirror tells the truth. But love honest, imperfect, and loyal can awaken even the deepest sleep. There was once a Greek merchant who often had to travel far for business. To ensure his safety on those dangerous journeys, he hired a Turkish bodyguard, a man famous for his strength and martial skills. This bodyguard was not only powerful but also loyal, protecting the merchant for many years. However, the fee he demanded was extremely high. Friends would often tease the merchant, saying, "Are you hiring a bodyguard or a nobleman?" Hearing this again and again, the merchant himself sometimes felt uneasy. One day, 3 ordinary Turkish men came to him. They offered to work together as his protectors on his travels. What caught the merchant's attention was that the total pay the 3 men asked for was only half of what he paid his skilled bodyguard. A thought struck him: 3 men must surely be stronger than 1. More people, less money, that's a win-win. After some thought, he decided to dismiss his loyal bodyguard and hire the 3 ordinary men instead. When the Turkish bodyguard heard the news, he was neither angry nor surprised. The next day, as usual, he attended a banquet at his master's house, calm as if nothing had happened. Over wine, he finally spoke: "My friend, I hear you plan to dismiss me simply because my wage is too high. Before you decide, let me tell you a story." And he began: "Once, there was a shepherd who owned a strong, loyal dog to guard his goats. The dog was big, healthy, and fearless. People who saw it said, 'Why keep such a large dog that eats so much? Why not sell it and buy 3 smaller dogs instead? That way you spend less, and you'll have more dogs to guard your herd.' The shepherd thought this made sense. He sold the big dog and bought 3 little ones. Indeed, the cost was much lower, and now he had 3 pairs of eyes and 3 mouths to watch over his herd. He was proud of his cleverness. But one night, a pack of wolves attacked. Their eyes gleamed fiercely in the dark. The 3 small dogs, terrified, tucked their tails and fled. The goats were left unprotected, and many were killed that night. The shepherd realized too late that, by trying to save money, he had brought disaster upon himself. The bodyguard stopped and looked straight into the merchant's eyes. "My friend, I do not want you to make the same foolish mistake as that shepherd. A true bodyguard's worth lies not in numbers, but in loyalty and the strength to face danger when it comes." Hearing this, the Greek merchant suddenly understood. He realized that chasing small savings almost cost him his greatest security. From then on, he decided to keep the Turkish bodyguard by his side, continuing to pay the high wage because he now knew that some things could never be measured by money alone. Once upon a time, there was a humble farmer who spent his entire life working the land. His days were filled with sweat and toil under the blazing sun, planting and harvesting season after season. By the end of his life, he had managed to build a modest but comfortable life. He had a house, fields, and 3 strong sons. But at that moment of peace, he also realized his time was running out. One quiet afternoon, he called his 3 sons to his side. With a gaze that was both firm and gentle, he said, "I will leave you the land and the house, divided equally among you. But in addition, there is a treasure I buried somewhere in the fields. If you can find it, you will live in abundance for the rest of your lives." The sons' eyes lit up with joy, as if they had just received a blessing from the heavens. But before the father could tell them where the treasure was hidden, he passed away quietly. From that day on, the 3 sons tirelessly dug up every inch of their inherited land, turning over every patch of soil, hoping they might strike the spot where the treasure lay. Not a single day went by without them working in the fields, rain or shine. They toiled with the persistence of machines. Yet no matter how hard they searched, they could not find any treasure. Strangely though, that year, the crops grew better than ever. The soil became soft and rich, and yields doubled, sometimes tripled. They sold more rice than ever before, had enough money to upgrade their tools, renovate their homes, and gradually improve their lives. The next year, they continued working with the same diligence. One day, one of the sons paused in the middle of the field, recalling his father's final words, "This treasure will ensure you are never in want again." In that moment, it all became clear. The real treasure wasn't hidden beneath the soil, but within the sweat of their labor and the spirit of their perseverance. That was the true legacy their father had left behind. Though old in setting, the story holds a timeless truth in today's modern world. In an age where people are constantly chasing shortcuts to success, genuine hard work has become a rare gem. We are surrounded by promises of fast money, instant wealth, get-rich-quick schemes. Everyone wants treasure, but not everyone is willing to dig. Many want to be rich but don't want to learn new skills. They want good health but won't commit to a healthy lifestyle. They want fame but refuse to train, rehearse, or show up every day. So, their treasure remains locked away not by fate, but by their own reluctance to work for it. Just look at the people around you who've truly succeeded: singers, entrepreneurs, scientists, farmers, or even an inspiring YouTuber. None of them stumbled upon their treasure by chance or magic. They all started from the same place: videos no one watched, products no one bought, books no one read, seeds no one believed in. But they kept going, steadily, persistently, patiently, like the sons in the field. And then one day, the treasure appeared not in a chest of gold, but in the value they created, the trust they cultivated, and the strength they forged with their own hands. So, if you feel like your life is missing a treasure, stop looking outside. Return to your own field, whether that's a forgotten passion, an unpolished talent, or a job you've never truly given your all. Start digging. Start planting. Start caring. Because you never know which season will bring the harvest that changes everything, and success will come, not because of luck, but because of your unwavering effort. In the story, the father never revealed the exact location of the treasure, not because he forgot, but because he wanted his children to discover the deeper truth. That treasure was never buried in the earth, but always held in the hands that are willing to work, and the hearts that refuse to give up. In a faraway ocean, there lived a gigantic fish named Kuan. Its body stretched thousands of miles wide, moving like a living wave through the deep sea. One day, Kuan transformed into a creature of the sky, a majestic and powerful bird, whose wings, when spread, covered half the sky, stirring winds so strong they shook the heavens. This great eagle was preparing for a grand journey from the northern sea all the way to the southern ocean. It did not rush. It waited for the right wind, gathering strength in every fiber of its being, then soared into the sky. It flew higher and higher, beyond the clouds, where the sun beat directly upon its back. In that lofty height, there was no sound, only absolute silence, and a boundless sky. Each powerful beat of its wings brought it closer to the horizon of its ideals. Down below, in a dense grove of trees, was a world of a very different kind. A flock of tiny birds lived there year-round, fluttering between leaves, searching for food, and circling the same familiar branches. They were used to a closed orbit, to the safety of routine, never once glimpsing a vast ocean or a distant horizon. When the shadow of the great eagle passed overhead, the little birds felt a strange disturbance in the air. But soon, everything returned to how it was, their nest still nestled safely among the leaves, their daily lives continuing as they always had, for thousands of days before. Meanwhile, the eagle had pierced through the clouds, leaving behind the boundaries most creatures would never dare to cross. It saw unnamed mountains, untouched seas, and lands with no footprints. On this journey, it needed no audience, no approval. All it needed was a vast sky and strong wings, and that was enough. Not every creature is born to fly high. But what truly makes the difference is not just wings, it's the will to choose between familiar safety and the daring flight beyond limits. Some beings are born to live in the nest. But others, they are born to soar to the edge of the world. And the most precious truth is this: to know where you truly belong. The hidden lesson in the story. You don't need everyone to understand your dreams. Not everyone has eyes that see the distant horizon. If you carry within you a grand vision, don't live as if you were just a leaf in the wind. Fly like the eagle, not flutter like the little birds bound to the same old branch. In the quiet flow of life, there are moments that seem insignificant on the surface, but in truth, they hold the power to reshape an entire destiny. These turning points are not always dramatic. Sometimes, it's just a condescending glance, an offhanded remark, or a dismissive gesture that strikes directly at our sleeping pride. The story of Wilson, a young man who once worked as a hotel porter, is a compelling example of how pain, when processed right, becomes fuel for transformation. Wilson started with nothing: no wealth, no connections, no university degree. His job was modest, carrying luggage and washing guests' cars. In the world of luxury he served each day, he was invisible, an outsider looking in. But one day, he came across a Rolls-Royce, a car so elegant that it ignited a spark inside him. That moment wasn't just admiration, it was a stirring desire for something beyond his harsh reality. And right when that desire stirred, came the resistance. Someone with more power, more experience, looked down at him and dismissed him, as if to say, "People like you don't belong in places like this." In that moment, Wilson could have crumbled. He could have accepted that verdict. But instead, he chose silence, not out of weakness, but because a new kind of determination had just been born inside him. He didn't fight the world with words. He fought it with growth. From that moment on, Wilson didn't work just to survive, he worked to evolve. Every time he was underestimated, he doubled his effort. Every failure wasn't a dead end, but a lesson. He studied success, endured setbacks, and above all, kept his promise to himself. Years later, he didn't just sit in a Rolls-Royce, he bought one with his own hands. Not to flaunt it, but to honor a vow made long ago. His story is not just a victory tale, it is a profound reminder of the power of self-respect and agency. Along your own journey, you too will meet hotel managers, people who label you, limit you, and tell you you're not enough. But the most important voice is not theirs. It's yours. If you believe you're small, you'll live your life inside a cage someone else built. But if you believe you are worthy of greatness, then no hardship, no opinion, can stop you from rising. Self-worth is not proven by arguing back. It is proven by quietly becoming so good, so valuable, so unshakably yourself that no one gets to decide your seat, your path, or your dream except you. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village, lived a young woman named Belle. Unlike the other girls, Belle wasn't interested in fancy dresses or finding a wealthy husband. She adored books, those windows into adventure, wisdom, and truth. For Belle, appearances were fleeting. What truly mattered was the heart behind the face. One day, her father got lost in a storm and sought shelter in a strange, enchanted castle. While leaving, he picked a single rose for Belle. But the castle's master, a fearsome beast, appeared and imprisoned him for trespassing. Upon hearing this, Belle rushed to the castle and bravely offered to take her father's place. The townspeople called her foolish, but Belle believed that courage guided by love could reveal more than fear ever would. At first, the beast was terrifying. He growled. He sulked. He hid behind shadows and silence. But over time, through warm dinners, shared stories, and quiet moments, Belle began to notice something else. The beast was lonely, hurting, and longing to be understood. And slowly, she realized a powerful truth. Sometimes, the most beautiful souls are wrapped in the roughest forms. While others saw a monster, Belle saw a man capable of kindness, capable of love. When Belle had to leave to tend to her sick father, the beast let her go even though it broke his heart. Thinking she would never return, he began to wither in sorrow. But Belle came back. And when she saw him near death, she held his hand, whispered through tears, "I love you." At that moment, everything changed. The spell that bound him shattered not because she loved a handsome prince, but because she had loved a wounded soul before the world told her he was worthy. And so, the beast transformed back into a prince. Yet for Belle, it wasn't the change of form that mattered, it was the truth she had always seen beneath the surface. The moral lies within the tale itself. When we choose to look with the heart instead of the eyes, we unlock a kind of beauty the world too often overlooks. Love that sees through flaws is the kind that heals both the giver and the receiver. In life, opportunities often do not come from grand gestures, but from the simplest acts of kindness. The story of a heavy rain, an elderly woman in plain clothes, and a young salesman in an American department store illustrates this truth with remarkable clarity. That afternoon, the rain poured heavily over the city, sending people rushing for shelter. An old woman quietly stepped into a large department store. Her appearance was ordinary, her coat worn, her shoes frayed, her silver hair tied neatly behind her head. The sales clerks, long accustomed to elegant and wealthy customers, barely glanced at her before turning away. In their eyes, she was not a customer worth their time. Amidst this indifference, a young salesman approached her. With a polite smile and a courteous greeting, he inquired if she needed help. When he realized that all she wanted was a place to sit while the rain passed, he quickly fetched a small wooden chair and placed it beside her. Throughout the storm, he never tried to sell her anything. He simply showed genuine concern, checking if she was comfortable, before quietly returning to his duties. The old woman responded with a grateful smile and, before leaving, handed him her business card. Months later, the department store received an unexpected letter from Scotland. The letter requested that the same young clerk who had shown kindness to the elderly woman be sent to receive a special order. To the astonishment of everyone, the woman turned out to be the mother of the Steel King of America, one of the wealthiest and most powerful figures of the era. Even more astonishing, as the young man prepared for his journey, he was informed that he had also been made a business partner and shareholder of the very store where he once stood as an anonymous clerk. Why did such an extraordinary turning point come to such an ordinary young man? The answer lies in a small act of kindness. While others judged the woman by her appearance, he looked with his heart. He did not see her as a customer of little worth, but as a human being deserving of respect and care. That small gesture changed the course of his entire life. This story offers a profound lesson. In today's society, many people live by calculations of gain and loss. They ask, "What will I get if I give?" and hesitate to act without immediate reward. Yet life does not operate like a dry equation. Acts of kindness are seeds sown quietly, often blossoming into opportunities when we least expect them. A small gesture, a moment of respect, a touch of patience, these may become the key to open the greater doors of tomorrow. In schools, there are students who treat their teachers and classmates with indifference, believing it makes no difference. Yet when the time comes to seek a recommendation or a helping hand, they find themselves alone. In workplaces, there are those who disregard colleagues or dismiss small clients, focusing only on quick gains. But the very relationships they neglect may hold the greatest opportunities for the future. Even within families, we often overlook the simplest things: a thank you, a smile, a small act of care. Yet it is precisely these gestures that hold relationships together through the years. The world does not lack talent or intelligence. What it lacks is kindness. Skill may bring someone forward, but without respect and humanity, it cannot carry them far. Meanwhile, even an ordinary person who treats others with genuine dignity and care will earn trust and eventually be granted opportunity. That small wooden chair on a rainy afternoon did more than ease an old woman's tired legs. It became a symbol of an eternal principle: give from the heart, and life will return to you far more than you ever imagined. And when you one day stand at a crossroads of life, remember this: the small act of kindness you choose today, however ordinary it may seem, may well be the key that opens the great door of tomorrow. In an old kitchen, where faint sunlight streamed through a crack in the wall, lived a little mouse with his family in a cupboard corner. Every day, he silently gazed out through a narrow gap. The light, the sounds, and a vast world beyond the wall seemed to whisper something to him. One evening, while everyone else was asleep, the little mouse stepped out into the living room. On the owner's smartphone screen, a video played, the blue ocean lapping gently, white-tipped waves rolling, and seagulls circling in the sunset sky. The mouse looked up, eyes wide, heart pounding with wonder. At dawn the next day, before the world even stirred, the little mouse strapped on a tiny cloth bag, glanced back at his cozy nest one last time, and quietly set off. The journey began. He scurried through pipes, crossed narrow alleys, and squeezed between cracks in the walls. But he hadn't gone far when a cat leapt down from nowhere, eyes sharp like blades. The little mouse panicked, bolted through the grass as claws slashed the air behind him. He escaped, but his tail was bleeding. Before he could rest, a dog charged from behind a fence. Its barking echoed through the neighborhood. The mouse darted under the bushes, heart pounding wildly. Above, a hawk circled in the sky, casting ominous shadows. Darkness fell. The mouse grew weary, stumbling with wounds covering his tiny body. He stopped beneath a tree, gasping, vision blurry. The sky was turning orange. And still, he walked on. With trembling legs, he climbed a hill. And then, the ocean appeared. Vast, endless, glowing in the sunset. Silver waves embraced the sandy shore. The sky was deep purple, with clouds brushed in hues of pink like a dream. The little mouse sat down, eyes quiet, body exhausted, but his face lit up with a strange, peaceful joy. The sea breeze brushed over his tiny head, and stars began to twinkle above. He said nothing. He simply watched the sea, then looked up and gently closed his eyes. A faint smile curled on his lips. In life, each of us has faced unexpected and sometimes frightening challenges, especially during childhood. The story of the great inventor Siemens at the age of 8 is a prime example of how the way we deal with difficulties can profoundly affect our entire lives. When he was a child, both Siemens and his older sister were terrified after being attacked by a fierce gander. His sister refused to return to her lessons unless someone accompanied her, and young Siemens was just as scared. However, the difference was that, in the moment when all he wanted to do was run away, Siemens remembered his father's advice: when facing danger, don't run from it. Be brave and confront it. Use your stick to protect yourself. Thanks to his father's encouragement and guidance, the boy summoned his courage and bravely swung his stick to fight back against the gander. The result was that it wasn't the boy who ran away, but the gander that had to retreat. This small experience became deeply engraved in Siemens's mind, turning into a vital lesson he emphasized in his autobiography later in life: daring to face danger, and choosing to act positively instead of giving up or running away, is the foundation for maturity and success. The profound lesson from this story is not about conquering a goose, but about the spirit of daring to face and resist one's fears. In life, difficulties and challenges are inevitable. If we only avoid them or rely on others for protection, we will never truly grow in spirit or strength. Only when we dare to confront our fears and take action ourselves, do we discover our inner strength and develop resilient willpower. Great success in the future is built upon overcoming the small challenges of childhood, from courage and the ability to make proactive choices. Therefore, always remember, when facing difficulties in life, the important thing is not to avoid them or wait for help, but to bravely face and stand up to them with resilience. That is the solid foundation for everyone to rise and truly mature, and I am truly grateful for this.
Fun story clips.